I know you're here, Monroe. Wick's voice carried through the empty space. Security cameras caught you breaking in. You're already going down for burglary. Don't make it worse. Elias looked at Ranger. The dog's eyes met his. An understanding passed between them. Not words. Something deeper. The kind of loyalty that doesn't ask questions or count costs. Go, Elias whispered. Find Vance. Ranger's head tilted. The dog didn't want to leave. Every instinct said stay and protect. But Elias pointed toward the loading dock exit. Firm and clear. Go. Now. The dog hesitated one more second, then turned and ran, silent as smoke, disappearing into shadows. Elias stepped out from behind the shelves, duffel bag in hand. You shot at me. At the diner. Wick stood 20 feet away, service weapon drawn, but not yet aimed. That was a warning. This doesn't have to end badly. For who? You? Because it already ended badly for Marina. For my wife. For everyone who got in your way. Your wife was an accident. Wrong place, wrong time. The admission landed like a knife. Elias's vision tunneled. His wife. Clara. Beautiful, smart, caring Clara who'd only wanted to do her job honestly. Killed because she'd noticed numbers didn't add up. How much? Elias's voice came out steady. Cold. How much were you paid to look the other way while people lost everything? Wick's expression didn't change. You don't understand how the world works. Those properties were going to be developed either way. Those businesses were failing. We just accelerated the process. You stole from people who couldn't fight back. We took from people who were taking up space. There's a difference. Wick raised his weapon. Dropped the bag. Elias looked at the gun. At Wick's face. At the evidence that could destroy him and everyone like him. No. Last chance. Then shoot. Wick's finger moved to the trigger. But before he could fire, something crashed through the front entrance. Voices shouting. FBI. Hands up. Boots thundering across concrete. Wick's attention flickered for half a second. Elias ran. He made it to the loading dock before shots rang out. Made it outside before agents swarmed the building. Made it to his truck where Ranger waited, tail wagging, Vance standing beside the vehicle with his badge held high. You got them? Vance asked. Elias held up the duffel bag. Every last file. Justice had finally arrived. But the price of waiting 3 years would haunt Elias Monroe for the rest of his life, and the truth about who really controlled his town was only beginning to surface. The courtroom smelled like old wood and older lies. Elias sat in the gallery, hands folded in his lap, watching Sergeant Wick take the stand. The man looked smaller somehow, diminished, like removing the uniform had stripped away whatever made him dangerous. But his eyes still held that same cold calculation. Still believed he'd find a way out. The prosecutor was a woman named Chun. Sharp suit. Sharper questions. She held up a spreadsheet, one of Marina's carefully documented files. Can you explain why you arrested Mr. Monroe on assault charges that were dropped within 48 hours? Wick's lawyer objected. The judge overruled. Wick shifted in his seat. The victim was confused. Recanted her statement. The victim was Marina Cortez, a whistleblower who'd contacted federal authorities about corruption in your department. Chin moved closer. She didn't recant. She disappeared. Can you tell the court where she went? I have no idea. You have no idea. Chin's voice was flat. Despite being the arresting officer, despite having access to her medical records, her address, her entire file, she left the hospital against medical advice. We assumed she'd gone home. To the home that your fellow officers searched 3 times without a warrant? Chin held up another document. To the apartment where her belongings were photographed and cataloged as part of an investigation that was never officially opened? The jury watched Wick like he was something they'd found under a rock. 2 months since Marina's body was discovered near the warehouse. 2 months since the FBI arrested 14 people, including Sloan, 3 county supervisors, and the CEO of Sentinel Solutions. 2 months since Elias's name was cleared and the truth finally dragged into daylight. But Marina was still dead. Her baby was still gone. And Clara had been dead for 3 years because Elias hadn't listened when she tried to tell him something was wrong. The trial lasted 6 days. Testimony from Marina's co-workers. Documentation from the FBI's investigation. Financial records showing Wick had deposited over $300,000 in offshore accounts. Recordings of phone calls where he coordinated with property developers about upcoming seizures. On the 7th day, the jury came back. Guilty on all counts. Wick's face didn't change. He'd known for weeks it was over. The only question had been whether he'd take responsibility or keep lying until the end. He chose lying, right up to sentencing, claiming he'd been following orders, doing his job, protecting the community. The judge wasn't impressed. 30 years federal prison. No parole. Sloan got 10 years. He'd cooperated, testified against everyone above him, cried on the stand about being pressured by superiors to do things he knew were wrong. Maybe it was true. Maybe he was just a coward who followed orders. Either way, 10 years felt insufficient for the lives he'd helped destroy. Elias walked out of the courthouse into October sunshine. Nia was waiting on the steps, taller than she'd been 6 months ago. Growing fast. Too fast. She'd spent 3 weeks in foster care before CPS released her back to him. 3 weeks that had left marks neither of them talked about. "Is it over?" she asked. "Yeah, baby. It's over." But it wasn't. Not really. Ranger was gone. Died 3 weeks after the arrest, saving Nia from a speeding car that had jumped the curb. The same kind of accident that had taken Clara. Except Ranger had seen it coming somehow, pushed Nia out of the way, taken the impact himself. The driver was never found. No witnesses. No cameras. Just another unsolved hit and run in a town that had mastered the art of looking away. Elias and Nia drove to the cemetery. They visited Clara's grave first. New flowers. Fresh dirt around the headstone. Someone from the victim's advocacy group had been maintaining it, making sure she wasn't forgotten. "Mom would be proud of you," Nia said quietly. "For not giving up." Elias knelt, touching the marble. "She tried to tell me something was wrong. I didn't listen. You're listening now." They walked to the oak tree behind the property line. Ranger's grave. Simple marker. Just his name and dates. Elias had wanted to bury him at home, in the backyard where he'd spent hours chasing squirrels. But this felt right. Near Clara. Near family. Nia placed a tennis ball on the grave. Ranger's favorite. Worn and dirty and perfect. "He knew," Elias said. "That morning. He was trying to warn me. Not about Marina. About the men chasing her. About the bag. About everything." "Dogs see what people miss," Nia said. It was something Clara used to say. Hearing it from their daughter's mouth felt like a message from beyond. The shop had reopened. Slowly. Customers returning one by one, ashamed and apologetic. Elias accepted their business without comment. Didn't see the point in holding grudges. The town had been manipulated by people in power. Fear and prejudice had done the rest. He'd renamed the shop Ranger's Garage. Put the dog's photo in the front window where everyone could see. Added a plaque underneath. He saw the truth when humans looked away. The settlement money from the county's corruption lawsuit sat in an account Elias barely touched. $2 million. Blood money. He'd donated half to a fund for wrongly accused parents. Used another portion to start a scholarship for kids who'd lost parents to violence. The rest sat waiting for Nia's college tuition. Marina's son had been born at 28 weeks. Premature. Struggling. He'd survived 2 weeks before his tiny body gave up fighting. The hospital named the pediatric wing after him. Michael Cortez Memorial. A baby who'd never taken a breath outside an incubator, now immortalized in bronze letters above automatic doors. Sometimes Elias wondered if it was enough. Justice served. Criminals punished. Truth exposed. But Marina was still dead. Clara was still dead. Ranger was still dead. And Michael had never gotten a chance to live. The victories felt hollow compared to the losses. But every Saturday morning, Elias and Nia walked down Brookside Avenue. Past Mrs. Patterson's house with the tulips replanted. Past Mr. Chin's corner mailbox. Past the spot where Marina had collapsed. They walked not as victims, but as survivors. As witnesses to what happened when good people stayed silent and bad people wore badges. The neighborhood recognized them now. Not with pity, but with quiet respect. The man who wouldn't break. The girl who'd stood by her father. The dog who'd seen evil and barked until someone finally listened. "You think Mom and Ranger are together?" Nia asked, standing under the oak tree. Elias looked at the graves. At the town spreading out below them. At the daughter who'd lost so much but still believed in questions that had no easy answers. "Yeah, I think they are. And I think they're proud of us. For fighting. For surviving. For standing up. For proving that truth, no matter how long it hides, always finds its voice." They stood together in the cooling afternoon, autumn leaves falling around them like slow confetti. The town called him the man who wouldn't break. But Elias knew the truth. He'd broken 1,000 times. Every time he looked at Clara's empty chair. Every time Nia woke up crying from nightmares about CPS. Every time he walked past Ranger's food bowl, still sitting in the corner because moving it felt like admitting he was really gone. But breaking wasn't the same as shattering. And maybe that was the lesson. That you could crack and bleed and barely hold together, and still be standing when the sun came up. Still be fighting when everyone expected you to quit. The scars would remain, but so would the strength. And in a world that tried to bury the truth, Elias Monroe had become the voice that refused to be silenced. Truth doesn't always shout. Sometimes it barks. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it collapses on your front lawn and points at evidence everyone else refuses to see. Elias stood at the counter of Ranger's garage, wiping grease from his hands. A customer was due any minute. Mrs. Henderson. She'd called last week, apologizing for the 10th time, asking if he could look at her transmission. He'd said yes. Not because he'd forgotten how quickly she'd abandoned him, but because forgiveness wasn't about deserving. It was about choosing not to carry hate. The bell above the door chimed. A young woman walked in, maybe 22, carrying a notebook. Student. Journalism major from the local college. She'd called ahead, asking for an interview about the corruption case. Mr. Monroe? Thank you for seeing me. Elias gestured to the chairs by his desk. Clara's photo sat in a new frame, glass unbroken. Beside it, Ranger's collar hung on a hook. Red leather worn smooth from years of wear. The dog's bark split the morning air like a gunshot. Elias Monroe's hands clamped around Ranger's collar, muscles straining as the German shepherd lunged forward, claws scraping concrete. The woman stumbled 3 feet away, one hand pressed against her swollen belly, the other reaching toward nothing. Blood streaked down her temple. Her torn blouse hung off one shoulder. Easy, boy. Easy. Elias's voice cracked. Ranger didn't ease. The dog's growl rattled deep in his chest, primal and urgent, eyes locked not on the woman but past her, toward the empty street behind. The woman's knees buckled. She hit the grass hard, gasping. They're coming. Elias released Ranger's collar and rushed forward. His daughter's voice pierced through the screen door behind him. Daddy, stay inside, Nia. He dropped to one knee beside the woman. Her eyes rolled back, pupils unfocused. Purple bruises mottled her brown skin like storm clouds. She couldn't be more than 25. The baby bump pressed against her dirty jeans. Ma'am, can you hear me? His fingers found her wrist. Pulse racing. I'm calling an ambulance. No. Her hand shot up, gripping his forearm with surprising strength. They planted it. Blue car. Warehouse. Her whisper barely formed words. They think I... Sirens screamed around the corner. Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Elias's head snapped up. 2 police cruisers skidded to a stop in front of his house, tires smoking. 4 doors flew open in unison. Boots hit pavement. Ranger's barking exploded into something feral. Hands. Let me see your hands. The first officer charged across the lawn, gun drawn, badge glinting under morning sun. His voice carried the kind of authority that didn't ask twice. Elias raised both palms, fingers spread wide. She needs help. She just collapsed. Step away from her. Now. The second officer circled right, hand on his holster. Older. Harder eyes. A silver nameplate red wick across his chest. He looked at Elias the way a man looks at roadkill. On the ground. Face down. What? I didn't. I said down. Nia screamed from the doorway. Ranger launched himself forward, chain snapping taut. 80 pounds of fury aimed at Wick's legs. The officer's hand moved to his baton. Don't. Elias threw himself between them. He's protecting her. But Ranger wasn't looking at the woman anymore. His entire body faced the patrol car's open door, hackles raised, teeth bared at something inside the vehicle's back seat. Something blue and canvas that caught the light wrong. Wick's knee drove into Elias's spine. Cold metal circled his wrists. The world tilted sideways as his cheek pressed into dirt that tasted like copper and cut grass. Through blurred vision, he watched the first officer lift the woman onto a stretcher. Her hand dangled off the side, pointing toward the patrol car, toward the blue bag Ranger couldn't stop barking at. Shut that mutt up, or I will, Wick snarled. Nia's sobs carried across the lawn. Neighbors emerged onto porches, phones raised, recording. A crowd forming like vultures. Elias tried to twist his head, tried to see what Ranger saw, but hands hauled him up by his elbows and shoved him toward the cruiser's cage. The last thing he heard before the door slammed was his daughter's voice breaking on his name, and Ranger's howl cutting through the morning like a warning no one understood. He thought his dog was protecting the woman, but the truth would prove the opposite. What could a single dad possibly do to end up in handcuffs on his own front lawn? Drop a comment below with your theory, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button because what happens next will shatter everything you think you know about justice. The holding cell smelled like bleach and bodies. Elias sat on the metal bench, elbows on knees, staring at the concrete floor between his sneakers. 48 hours. They'd kept him for 48 hours without charges, without explanation, without letting him call anyone but a public defender who showed up hungover and left after 6 minutes. His reflection stared back from the steel toilet's polished surface. Dark circles carved shadows under his eyes. Oil still stained his knuckles from yesterday's brake job. Yesterday, when life made sense. When Saturday mornings meant pancakes and cartoons, not fluorescent lights that never turned off and guards who walked past without looking. The door's lock mechanism clicked. Elias's head jerked up. Officer Sloan stepped through, younger than Wick, face carefully neutral. He held a manila folder thin enough to be empty. "You're free to go." No apology in his tone. No explanation. Elias stood slowly, joints stiff. "Free? What about?" The woman dropped the complaint. "No charges filed." Sloan opened the cell door wider. "Your daughter's with Child Protective Services. You can pick her up after processing." The words hit like a fist. "CPS? She's 8 years old. She didn't do anything." Standard procedure when a parent's arrested for assault. Sloan's eyes finally met his. Something flickered there. Guilt? Warning? You got lucky, Monroe. Could have been worse. But it was worse. Elias knew at the moment he stepped outside into sunshine that felt wrong against his skin. His truck sat alone in the impound lot, covered in a fine layer of dust. The drive home stretched 15 minutes, but felt like drowning. Brookside Avenue looked the same. Same cracked sidewalk. Same oak tree where Nia practiced cartwheels. Same blue mailbox at the corner. Everything familiar and completely foreign. Then he saw his shop. Ranger's Auto Repair. The sign his wife had painted 7 years ago, back when they'd first bought the building and dreams felt solid. Someone had spray painted across it in dripping red letters, "Woman Beater." Elias's hands tightened on the steering wheel. The shop's front window, the one he'd replaced last spring, lay shattered across the concrete. Glass glittered like diamonds in the afternoon light. His toolbox, the one his father gave him before he died, sat appended in the parking lot, wrenches scattered like bones. He parked and walked through the destruction. Motor oil pooled near the hydraulic lift, deliberate, poured. His appointment book torn to confetti. The small photo of Clara and Nia that he kept taped to the register, crushed under a boot print. His phone buzzed. Text messages loaded one after another, a flood of cancellations. "Mrs. Henderson, sorry, can't make Monday's appointment. Found someone else. Marcus from the church. Think it's best we keep our distance." Even Tommy, who he'd known since high school. "Man, I don't know what happened, but I can't be associated with this right now." Elias sank onto the concrete steps outside. The same steps where he'd taught Nia to tie her shoes. Where Clara used to sit during lunch breaks, reading novels and sharing sandwiches. Where Ranger would sleep in the shade while Elias worked. Ranger. They'd impounded him too. 48 hours in a concrete kennel, alone and confused, probably thinking Elias had abandoned him. The guilt sat heavy in his chest, thick and suffocating. A car rolled past. Slow. The driver's eyes tracked him through the window before speeding up. Another car. Another set of eyes. The neighborhood watch WhatsApp group had probably already spread the news. Pregnant woman. Assault. His name attached to words that would stick forever, true or not. The sun dipped lower. Shadows stretched long across the empty lot. Elias's phone rang. The public defender, voice flat. "Mr. Monroe, I should inform you that the woman you allegedly assaulted has been reported missing. She left the hospital against medical advice. Police have no current location." Missing? How can she just? But the line was already dead. Elias looked at his destroyed shop, at the red paint accusations, at the neighborhood that had turned its back between one sunrise and the next. The woman's last words echoed in his memory. They planted it. Blue car. Warehouse. Who were they? What did they plant? And why did Ranger act like the threat wasn't the woman at all, but something or someone else entirely? His phone buzzed again. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. Mr. Monroe? A woman's voice. Professional. Cautious. My name is Tara Fields. I'm an investigative journalist with the County Tribune. I've been looking into some irregularities with recent arrests in your district, and your case has some concerning patterns. Would you be willing to talk? Elias stared at the shattered glass, at the lies spray painted across his livelihood, at the community that had convicted him without trial. He thought about his daughter in a CPS facility, probably crying herself to sleep. He thought about Ranger, loyal to the end, trying to warn him about something everyone else refused to see. Yeah, he said quietly. I'll talk. But talking would only be the beginning, because what Elias didn't know was that the pregnant woman wasn't the victim everyone believed her to be, and the real criminals were closer than anyone imagined. 3 years earlier, Elias had learned what forever meant. The knock came at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. 2 officers on his porch, hats in hands, eyes that wouldn't quite meet his. Clara's car had been found wrapped around a telephone pole on Highway 9, driver's side crushed, no skid marks. Hit and run. Witnesses reported a dark sedan speeding away. No plates, no cameras, no justice. Just a body bag and a 7-year-old girl asking when mommy was coming home. Elias had sold Clara's jewelry to keep the shop running. Worked 16-hour days because sleeping meant dreaming, and dreaming meant waking up to remember she was gone. Nia learned to make her own breakfast. Learned to do homework alone at the kitchen table while Dad finished one more oil change, fixed one more transmission, chased one more bill that never quite got paid. But they survived. Barely. Together. Ranger came 6 months after the funeral. A client couldn't keep him, needed someone who understood loyalty. The dog attached himself to Nia immediately, sleeping outside her door, walking her to the bus stop, growling at strangers who got too close. He'd been Clara's gift, in a way. A guardian she'd sent from wherever good people go when the world takes them too soon. Now, standing in the CPS waiting room, Elias felt that same hollow ache from 3 years ago. The receptionist wouldn't make eye contact. The clock ticked too loud. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead like dying insects. Mr. Monroe? A woman in a gray pantsuit emerged from a back hallway. Clipboard. Tired smile. I'm Ms. Vaughn, Nia's case manager. We need to discuss some concerns before reunification. Concerns. The word tasted like ash. She's my daughter. I didn't do anything wrong. The charges were dropped, yes. But there's still the matter of, Ms. Vaughn flipped through papers. Your financial instability, the condition of your home environment, and now this arrest. We have to prioritize Nia's safety. My home is fine. My shop was destroyed. Was vandalized. Was bleeding customers like an open wound. Temporary difficulties. I provide for her. Mr. Monroe, your bank statements show. I know what they show. Elias's jaw tightened. He'd been 3 weeks late on the mortgage twice this year. The power got shut off once in July. They ate spaghetti 4 nights a week because it was cheap and filled bellies. But Nia was fed, clothed, loved. I work hard. Every single day. For her. MS. Vaughn's expression softened slightly. I can see that. But perception matters. This arrest, the allegations, even though they were dropped, they create questions. We need to ensure this environment is stable. Through the window in the door behind her, Elias could see Nia sitting on a plastic chair, backpack on her lap, eyes red from crying. She looked so small, so breakable. How long? His voice came out rough. Minimum 72 hours for evaluation. Could be longer depending on. Longer. Elias stood abruptly. The chair scraped linoleum. She just lost 3 days thinking I abandoned her. You want to keep her from me longer. Mr. Monroe, please sit down. But he couldn't. His hands shook. Clara's voice echoed in his memory from some lazy Sunday morning years ago. Promise me if anything happens, you'll protect her. No matter what. He'd promised. And now the system was using his love as evidence against him. Can I at least see her? The question came out quieter than he intended. Ms. Vaughn hesitated, then nodded. 5 minutes. Supervised. They led him to a small room painted cheerful yellow, with donated toys in the corner and motivational posters on the walls. Nia sat at a table drawing with crayons. When she saw him, her face crumpled. Daddy. She crashed into him, arms around his waist, face buried in his shirt. He held her like she might disappear if he loosened his grip even slightly. She smelled like unfamiliar soap and fear. "I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry." The words were inadequate. Useless. "I didn't leave you. I would never. They said you hurt someone." Her voice was muffled against his chest. "I told them you didn't. I told them, but no one listened." Elias dropped to his knees so they were eye level. Tears tracked down her brown cheeks. He wiped them away with his thumb. "Listen to me. I didn't hurt anyone. I was trying to help. And I'm going to fix this, okay? I'm going to make them understand. When can I come home?" The question broke something inside him. "Soon. Real soon." Ms. Vaughn cleared her throat from the doorway. "Time's up, Mr. Monroe." Nia's grip tightened. "Don't go. Please don't go. I have to. But I'll be back. I promise." He kissed her forehead. "Be brave for me. Can you do that?" She nodded, but her hands didn't want to let go. It took Ms. Vaughn's gentle intervention to separate them. Elias walked back to the waiting room feeling like he'd left half his soul in that cheerful yellow room. Outside, the parking lot stretched empty except for his truck. Evening settled over the city, streetlights flickering on one by one. Elias sat behind the wheel but didn't start the engine. His phone sat on the passenger seat, Tara Field's number still in the call log. A journalist. Someone who might actually listen. Someone who might help him understand why a random Saturday morning had destroyed everything he'd spent 3 years rebuilding. He was about to dial when movement caught his eye. A sedan rolled past the CPS building. Blue. Dark windows. It slowed near the entrance, engine idling, before continuing down the street. Elias's pulse kicked up. He remembered Rangers barking. Remembered the dog's focus on the patrol car's back seat. Remembered the woman's whispered words. Blue car. Could be coincidence. Could be paranoia. Could be nothing. But the sedan circled the block and passed again, slower this time. And Elias knew with sudden certainty that Clara's hit and run had never been solved for a reason. That some truths stay buried because powerful people need them hidden, and that whatever he'd stumbled into on his front lawn 3 days ago was far bigger than one pregnant woman and one wrongful arrest. He didn't know it yet, but the blue sedan's driver was watching him too, and the next move would determine whether Elias uncovered the truth or became another unsolved case in a town that had mastered the art of looking away. The woman appeared out of nowhere. One moment Elias was pouring Cheerios into Nia's bowl, sunlight streaming through kitchen windows, radio playing old Motown. The next, Ranger was on his feet, ears flat, a growl building in his throat that made the hair on Elias's neck stand up. "What is it, boy?" Through the screen door, a figure stumbled down the sidewalk. Female. Pregnant. Moving wrong, like her legs weren't quite under her control. Elias set down the cereal box and stepped onto the porch. She was young. Early 20s maybe, with dark coiled hair pulled into a messy bun. Her white tank top was torn at the shoulder, revealing a bra strap and bruised skin underneath. Blood had dried in a thin line from her hairline to her jaw. She cradled her belly with one arm while the other reached forward, grasping at air. "Ma'am," Elias called out. "You okay?" Her head turned toward his voice. Brown eyes wide and unfocused. Lips moving, but no sound coming out. She took 3 more steps, and her knees gave out. Elias jumped off the porch. Ranger exploded after him, barking sharp and frantic. The dog's entire body vibrated with urgency, pulling against his collar so hard the chain rattled against the railing. "Ranger, no. Heel." Elias shoved the dog back toward the house. "Nia, keep him inside." He heard his daughter's small hands grab Ranger's collar through the door, the dog whining high and desperate. Elias ran to where the woman had collapsed on his front lawn. She'd fallen on her side, one hand still pressed against her stomach, the other clutching grass. "I got you. You're okay." He touched her shoulder gently. She flinched hard enough that he pulled back. "I'm not going to hurt you. Just trying to help." Her eyes found his face. Recognition flickered there, or maybe desperation. Her lips formed words. "Please, help." "I will. I'm calling 911 right now." "No." Her hand shot out, grabbed his wrist with surprising strength. Her palm was sweaty and cold. "No police. They think I took it." "Took what?" Behind them, Ranger's barking reached a fever pitch. Elias glanced back. The dog had his front paws on the screen door, nose pressed against the mesh, staring not at the woman but past her, toward the street corner where nothing moved. "Ma'am, you need a hospital." That baby. They're coming. Her grip tightened. The blue car. Warehouse on 5th. They planted it in my car. Evidence. I didn't. I was trying to. Her eyes rolled back. Words slurred. Files. Corruption. Had to get it out. A siren wailed in the distance. Growing louder. Elias's stomach dropped. Did you call the police? She didn't answer. Her hand went limp in his. Her breathing turned shallow and rapid. Elias pressed 2 fingers against her neck, felt the pulse racing underneath. The siren screamed closer. Too close. Too fast. Like they'd been waiting around the corner. Ranger's barking changed pitch. Higher. Panicked. Elias looked toward the street and saw the patrol car skid around the corner, lights flashing red and blue across white houses and green lawns. A second cruiser followed close behind. Daddy. Nia's voice from the doorway, scared. Stay inside, baby. The first cruiser jumped the curb, tires crushing Mrs. Patterson's tulips next door. 2 officers piled out before the car fully stopped. The driver was young, fit, hand already on his weapon. The passenger side door opened and Sergeant Wick stepped out, older, face carved from stone, eyes that tracked Elias like a hawk watching prey. Hands. Let me see your hands. The young officer charged across the lawn, gun drawn. Elias raised both palms slowly. She needs help. I think she's. Step away from her. I'm trying to tell you. Wick circled around, boots crunching on gravel. You deaf or stupid? He said step back. Elias stood carefully, backing up 3 paces. The woman lay motionless on the grass, one arm outstretched toward nothing. Her chest rose and fell in quick, shallow movements. I didn't touch her, Elias said, keeping his voice steady. She collapsed. I was checking if she was breathing. Wick's eyes narrowed. He looked at Elias's oil-stained work boots, his faded jeans, his face. The calculation happened fast. You live here? Yes, sir. Convenient. Wick's hand moved to his belt, fingers drumming against his baton. Real convenient that a pregnant woman just happens to collapse on your lawn. The young officer knelt beside the woman, checking her pulse. She's alive, breathing weak. Behind them, an ambulance turned onto the street. No siren, but lights flashing. It pulled up smooth and professional. 2 EMTs jumped out with practiced efficiency. The young officer stood, gesturing them over. Ranger's barking had gone quiet. Elias glanced back at the house. The dog stood rigid at the screen door, staring at something in the second patrol car. The vehicle sat at the curb, driver's door open, back seat visible. Something blue was tucked in the corner. Canvas. A bag maybe. It caught the morning light wrong. Hey. Wick snapped his fingers in front of Elias's face. Eyes on me when I'm talking to you. I was just. You know this woman? No, sir. Never seen her before. But she collapsed on your property, right in front of your house. Wick stepped closer. His breath smelled like coffee and something sharp. You expect me to believe that's coincidence? I'm telling you what happened. The EMTs had the woman on a stretcher now, oxygen mask over her face. One of them called out. She's saying something. They all moved closer. The woman's eyes had opened, glassy and unfocused. Her lips moved behind the plastic mask. The young officer leaned down. Ma'am, can you hear me? Her hand lifted weakly, pointing. Not at Elias. Not at the officers. At the patrol car parked at the curb. At the blue bag in the back seat. Her mouth formed words no one could hear over the oxygen hissing. What's she saying? Wick demanded. The EMT shook his head. Can't tell. She's delirious. They loaded her into the ambulance. Doors slammed. The vehicle pulled away, lights still flashing, but no siren. The street fell quiet except for Ranger's low whine from inside the house. Wick turned back to Elias. His expression had changed. Harder. Decided. Turn around. Hands behind your back. What happens next will turn Elias's entire world upside down and prove that sometimes the biggest criminals are the ones wearing badges. The handcuffs bit into Elias's wrists. What are you doing? His voice came out higher than intended. I didn't do anything. Wick's knee pressed between Elias's shoulder blades, forcing him down against the porch railing. Wood dug into his ribs. You're under arrest for assault and obstruction of justice. Assault? I was helping her. That's not what it looked like to me. Wick yanked the cuffs tighter. Metal scraped skin. Found a pregnant woman bleeding on your property. You standing over her, refusing to cooperate. I cooperated. I did everything you asked. The young officer, his nameplate read Sloan, shifted his weight, looking uncomfortable. Sarge, maybe we should wait for a statement. Did I ask for your input, Sloan? Wick jerked Elias upright by his elbow. Secure the property. I want photos of everything. Daddy. Nia burst through the screen door, Ranger lunging past her. The dog hit the end of his chain and kept pulling, choking himself. 80 pounds of muscle and fury aimed straight at Wick. Get that animal under control. Wick's hand moved to his weapon. No, don't. Elias twisted against the cuffs. Nia, take him inside. Now. But Ranger wasn't looking at the officers anymore. His entire focus had shifted to the patrol car at the curb. The dog's barking changed pitch, desperate and insistent, front legs churning air as he strained against the chain. The metal links groaned. I said control your dog. Wick raised his baton. He's not attacking you. Elias's voice cracked. Look at him. He's barking at your car. Wick's expression flickered. Just for a second. Something passed behind his eyes, recognition maybe, or calculation. He glanced at the patrol car, at the blue canvas bag visible through the open door, then back at Elias. Sloan, take care of the animal. Wait, Elias lunged forward. Wick's arm shot out, catching him across the chest, slamming him back against the railing. Air rushed from his lungs. Sloan approached Ranger slowly, hands raised. Easy boy. Nobody's gonna hurt you. He grabbed the chain, pulling the dog backward. Ranger fought every inch, claws scraping wood, still barking at the patrol car. Nia wrapped her arms around the dog's neck. Tears streaked her face. Please don't take my daddy. Please. The words cut through Elias like broken glass. He looked at his daughter, 8 years old, already lost her mother, now watching her father get arrested on their front lawn while neighbors gathered with phones raised, recording everything. Mrs. Patterson stood on her porch next door, hand over her mouth. Mr. Chun from across the street leaned against his mailbox, shaking his head. The Johnson twins watched from their bedroom window upstairs. Everyone seeing. Everyone judging. This is wrong. Elias said quietly, meeting Wick's eyes. You know this is wrong. Wick's jaw tightened. What I know is you got a history. Wife died in a hit-and-run 3 years ago. Case never solved. Now a pregnant woman shows up bleeding, and you're the first person on scene. He leaned closer, voice dropping. Your kind always finds trouble. The words hung in the air like poison. Your kind. Elias felt them settle in his chest, heavy and familiar. He'd heard variations his whole life. From teachers who assumed he'd drop out. From shop owners who followed him down aisles. From loan officers who denied applications without looking at credit scores. Sergeant. Sloan appeared at Wick's shoulder. We don't have a formal complaint. Maybe we should. We have a victim in an ambulance and a suspect who can't explain why she was on his property. Wick grabbed Elias's arm. That's enough for me. They walked him toward the patrol car. Each step felt surreal. This wasn't happening. Couldn't be happening. Saturday mornings were for cartoons and pancakes, not handcuffs and accusations. As they passed the second cruiser, the one Ranger wouldn't stop barking at, Elias looked through the open door. The blue canvas bag sat on the back seat, partially unzipped. Papers visible inside. Official looking. Stamped headers. He caught a glimpse of a word. Evidence. Wait. Elias stopped walking. That bag. What's in it? Wick's grip tightened. None of your business. The woman said something about evidence. About them planting. Get in the car. Wick shoved him forward. She said blue car. That's a blue bag in a blue patrol car. Wick's hand clamped over Elias's mouth. Hard. Fingers digging into his jaw. He leaned close. Voice a whisper only Elias could hear. You want to see your daughter again? Shut your mouth. The threat landed like a punch. Elias's eyes went to Nia, still holding Ranger on the porch, her small body shaking with sobs. He thought about Clara, about promises made and kept, about how fast everything could be taken away. He stopped struggling. Wick released him and opened the patrol car door. Smart choice. They pushed him into the back seat. The cage separated him from the front. Plastic seats. No handles. The door slammed shut. Through the window, he watched Sloan approach the house to take statements. Watched neighbors whisper and point. Watched Nia collapse onto the porch steps, face in her hands, Ranger pressed against her side. The last thing Elias saw before they pulled away was the dog's head raised, still staring at the second patrol car, still barking at the blue bag that somehow everyone else refused to see. By the time the truth came out, it would already be too late, and the cost of one man's silence would be measured in lives destroyed and justice delayed. The spray paint was still wet. Elias stood in front of his shop, keys hanging loose in his hand. Red letters dripped down the sign Clara had painted, the words "woman beater" bleeding across her careful brushstrokes like an open wound. Glass from the shattered window crunched under his boots. His toolbox lay overturned in the parking lot, wrenches scattered across oil-stained concrete. He'd been released 2 hours ago. No apology, no explanation. Just Sloan handing him a manila envelope with his wallet and phone, saying the woman had dropped the complaint and disappeared from the hospital. Case closed. Except nothing was closed. Nothing was finished. The mortgage bill sat unpaid on his kitchen counter. The power company had called twice. Nia was still with CPS, sleeping in some stranger's house, probably crying into a pillow that didn't smell like home. His phone buzzed. Another text. "Mrs. Henderson, I'm sorry, Elias, but I found another mechanic." That made 12 cancellations since this morning. 12 customers who'd known him for years, who'd trusted him with their cars and their small talk, now acting like his name carried disease. Elias picked up a wrench from the ground. Chrome reflected his face back at him, distorted and tired. He thought about calling Tara Fields, the journalist who'd reached out. But what would he even say? That he'd been arrested for helping someone? That his dog had barked at a police car? That a pregnant woman had whispered about evidence and warehouses before vanishing like smoke? It sounded crazy. It sounded like excuses. Movement caught his eye. A car rolling past. Slow. Too slow. The driver's face turned toward him for 3 seconds before the vehicle sped up and disappeared around the corner. Blue sedan. Dark windows. Same car that had circled the CPS building yesterday. Coincidence? Had to be. Elias's pulse kicked up anyway. He walked to the shop's entrance, stepping over broken glass. Inside, the destruction continued. Someone had poured motor oil across the floor, deliberate trails leading to his desk where files lay torn and scattered. His appointment book, 5 years of customer records, ripped to confetti. The small photo of Clara and Nia, the one he kept taped to the register, lay face down under a boot print. He picked it up carefully. The glass frame had cracked, splitting Clara's smile in half. Nia's face was still intact, frozen at age 5, gap-toothed and laughing at something outside the camera's view. His throat tightened. He set the photo on the desk and started cleaning. Not because he believed customers would come back, but because sitting still meant thinking, and thinking meant drowning. An hour passed. Then 2. The sun dropped lower, casting long shadows through the broken window. Elias swept glass into piles, mopped oil, salvaged what tools hadn't been damaged. His back ached. His hands were raw, but the work felt good. Solid. Real. The blue sedan passed again. This time Elias saw it clearly. Same license plate prefix, JKL. Same tinted windows. Same deliberate slowness, like the driver wanted him to notice. The car paused at the corner, engine idling, before pulling away. Elias's phone sat on the desk beside Clara's broken photo. Tara Field's number was still in the call log. His thumb hovered over the screen. What did he have to lose? His reputation was already destroyed. His business was bleeding out. His daughter was in state custody because the system believed he was dangerous. And somewhere out there, a pregnant woman who'd tried to warn him about something was missing, possibly dead, while the cops who'd arrested him went home to their families like nothing had happened. He pressed dial. 3 rings. A woman's voice answered, professional but curious. Tara Fields. This is Elias Monroe. You called me about irregularities in my arrest. A pause. The sound of papers rustling. Mr. Monroe. Yes. Thank you for calling back. I know this is difficult, but I need to ask, what exactly happened the morning you were arrested? Elias told her everything. The woman collapsing. Rangers barking. The blue bag in the patrol car. Wick's threats. The way the woman had pointed at something before losing consciousness. He expected skepticism. Expected her to make polite noises and hang up. Instead, she went quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice had changed. Sharper. Focused. Mr. Monroe. Did the woman say anything about files? Or documentation? She mentioned evidence. Said they planted something. And the officers who arrested you, Sergeant Wick and Officer Sloan. Did either of them seem concerned about what the woman was saying? Elias thought back. Wick's hand clamping over his mouth. The whispered threat. The way he glanced at the blue bag when Ranger wouldn't stop barking. Wick did. He shut me up real fast when I mentioned the bag. Tara's keyboard clicked in the background. I'm going to share something with you, but I need your word it stays between us for now. Can you do that? Yes. I've been investigating a pattern of property seizures in your county. Black business owners, primarily. Their assets get frozen during investigations that never lead to charges. By the time they're cleared, they've lost everything. Shops closed. Houses foreclosed. The common thread is always the same two officers filing the initial reports. Elias's stomach went cold. Wick and Sloan. Wick primarily. Sloan's newer, seems to follow orders. But here's what's interesting. 3 weeks ago, a woman named Marina Cortez contacted me. She worked as an administrative assistant for a private contractor that handles evidence processing for the county. She claimed she'd found documentation proving the seizures were coordinated, that certain officers were getting kickbacks. Did she go to the police? She tried. Filed a complaint with Internal Affairs. 2 days later, her car was broken into. Files stolen. She called me scared, said she'd made copies and was going to bring them to my office. Tara's voice dropped. She never showed up, and now she's been reported missing. The pieces clicked together like tumblers in a lock. The pregnant woman. Was that Marina? I don't know, but the timing fits. And if she was carrying those files when Wick found her, Tara didn't finish the thought. She didn't need to. Elias looked at his destroyed shop, at the accusations spray painted across his livelihood, at the broken photo of his wife. They set me up, made me look guilty so no one would believe anything I said about that bag. That's my theory. And if I'm right, Marina's in serious danger. If she's even still alive. The words hung between them. Outside, dusk settled over Brookside Avenue. Streetlights flickered on one by one. Elias thought about Nia, about the promise he'd made to Clara, about how silence and fear kept corruption alive while good people looked away. What do you need from me? He asked quietly. Tara exhaled. Everything you remember. Times, dates, exact words. I'll cross-reference with my research. But Mr. Monroe, this is going to get worse before it gets better. If Wick realizes you're talking to me. A low growl cut through the silence. Elias spun around. Ranger stood at the shop's entrance, hackles raised, staring at something outside. The dog had escaped from animal control somehow, found his way home through miles of unfamiliar streets. His fur was matted with dirt. His paws were bleeding. But his eyes were locked on the street with that same desperate urgency from Saturday morning. The blue sedan sat parked across the street. Engine running. Headlights off. Mr. Monroe? Are you still there? Elias's hand tightened on the phone. Yeah, I'm here. Good. Because if my suspicions are correct, Marina wasn't just carrying evidence of corruption. Tara's voice turned grim. She was carrying proof of something much bigger. And the people who want her silenced won't stop at one pregnant woman and one mechanic. The sedan's driver door opened. A figure stepped out, silhouetted against the streetlight. Tall, broad shoulders, the shape of a gun visible on his hip. Ranger's growl deepened into something primal. What Elias didn't know was that the man stepping from that blue sedan had already decided his fate. And by the time morning came, the body count would start climbing in ways no one could have predicted. The license plate was half visible under street grime. JKL 4378. Elias had seen it before. Somewhere. The memory scratched at the edges of his mind, while Ranger's growl filled the shop like thunder. The man across the street stood motionless, face hidden in shadow, one hand resting on his belt near the weapon. Mr. Monroe? Tara's voice crackled through the phone. What's happening? Someone's watching me. Elias backed deeper into the shop, pulling Ranger with him. Blue sedan. Same one that's been circling all day. Get somewhere public. Now. Don't go home. Don't. The line went dead. Elias looked at his phone. Call dropped. No signal. Impossible. He'd had full bars 2 seconds ago. He tried again. Nothing. Like someone had cut the connection deliberately. The man crossed the street. Elias's heart hammered. He grabbed a tire iron from the scattered tools, gripping it tight enough that his knuckles went white. Ranger positioned himself between Elias and the door, teeth bared. The figure stopped just outside the broken window. Light finally caught his face. Young, maybe 30. Suit jacket over a white shirt. No police uniform, but something about his stance screamed law enforcement. He raised both hands slowly, palms out. Elias Monroe? W. Then Marina dies tonight. Vance's expression didn't change. If she's not dead already. The words hit like cold water. Elias studied the man's face, looking for deception. Found only exhaustion and something that might have been desperation. Why should I trust you? Because Sergeant Wick is at the county impound right now, destroying evidence. Because Officer Sloan just filed a report claiming Marina attacked him during arrest, which gives them legal cover if her body turns up. And because you've got about 10 minutes before Wick realizes I'm here instead of where I'm supposed to be. Ranger's growl quieted slightly. The dog's instincts were better than any lie detector. If he'd sensed real threat, he'd be lunging. Instead, he stood tense but waiting. Elias made a choice that went against every survival instinct. 5 minutes. You talk. I listen. Then I decide. They drove separately to Martha's Diner, a 24-hour spot frequented by truckers and third-shift workers. Bright lights. Full parking lot. Security cameras visible above the entrance. Vance chose a corner booth with a view of both exits. A waitress brought coffee without asking. Vance waited until she left before pulling a folder from inside his jacket. He slid it across the table. Inside were photographs. Marina Cortez's employee ID, bank statements, email printouts. Marina worked for Sentinel Solutions. They handle evidence processing and asset management for 6 counties. 3 months ago, she noticed discrepancies. Property seized during investigations was being undervalued, sold at auction for fractions of real worth. The buyers were always the same shell companies. Elias flipped through the papers. Numbers swam in front of his eyes, but patterns emerged. The same addresses appearing repeatedly. The same notary signatures. Someone's stealing. Not just stealing. Targeting. Look at the names. Vance tapped a highlighted list. All Black business owners. All properties located in zones recently marked for development. Seize their assets. Force them out. Sell the land cheap to connected buyers who flip it for millions. The coffee turned sour in Elias's stomach. He thought about his own shop. About the mortgage he could barely afford. About the development signs that had started appearing on Brookside Avenue last year, promising revitalization and community investment. Marina documented everything, Vance continued. Names, dates, transactions. She tried going through proper channels. Filed complaints. Requested audits. Then her supervisor, a man named Garrett Hutchins, told her to drop it or lose her job. He paused. 2 days later, Hutchins died in a car accident. Single vehicle. No witnesses. Elias's blood went cold. Like my wife. Vance's eyes sharpened. Your wife died in a hit-and-run 3 years ago. Unsolved. What was her job? She worked at the county assessor's office. Property valuations. The realization hit him like a fist. She would have seen the same discrepancies. Did she ever mention anything unusual? Pressure to change assessments? Threats? Elias thought back. Clara coming home frustrated. Complaining about her boss asking her to redo paperwork. Saying the numbers didn't match reality. He'd assumed it was bureaucratic nonsense. He'd told her not to worry about it. He'd told her to let it go. She mentioned something, he said quietly, about properties being undervalued. I didn't think it mattered. Vance closed his eyes briefly. Mr. Monroe, I think your wife stumbled onto the same corruption Marina found. And I think someone made sure she couldn't talk about it. The diner noise faded to white noise. Conversations at other tables. The clatter of dishes. The hiss of the coffee machine. All of it distant and meaningless compared to the truth settling in Elias's chest like lead. Clara hadn't died in a random accident. She'd been murdered. And he'd spent 3 years thinking it was just bad luck. Just the universe being cruel. When really it was calculated and deliberate. And he could have stopped it if he'd just listened to her concerns instead of dismissing them as work stress. Marina copied all the files to a thumb drive, Vance said. Hid it in her apartment. But when Wick and his people came looking, she ran. Grabbed the physical files she'd kept as backup, shoved them in a bag, and ran. He leaned forward. She threw that bag onto your property because she knew they'd arrest you. Knew you'd be a distraction while she tried to escape. She used me. She was terrified and pregnant and out of options. Vance's voice held no judgment. And she was right. They did arrest you. Held you long enough to search her apartment, find the drive, destroy it. By the time you were released, the digital evidence was gone. But the physical files are in a blue duffel bag currently sitting in evidence lockup. logged as personal effects from a psychiatric patient. If Marina dies, those files become irrelevant. Just the paranoid delusions of an unstable woman. Elias's hands curled into fists. Where is she? I don't know. She escaped the hospital 2 nights ago. I've been trying to track her, but Wix people are better resourced. They've got access to traffic cameras, cell towers, informants. Vance pulled out his phone, showed Elias a grainy security photo. This was taken at a gas station on Highway 9 yesterday morning. She was buying water and crackers. Paid cash. Looked scared. The photo showed Marina in profile. Her hand rested on her stomach. Dark circles under her eyes. Looking over her shoulder like she expected someone to grab her at any moment. There's a warehouse on 5th Street, Elias said suddenly. She mentioned it right before she passed out. Said something about the blue car and a warehouse. Vance went still. 5th Street Industrial Park? That's owned by one of the shell companies. Purchased 8 months ago for half its assessed value. He stood abruptly. If she went there. The diner's front window exploded. Glass showered across tables. People screamed. A waitress dropped a tray. Coffee and ceramic shattered across tile. Through the broken window, a car's engine roared. The blue sedan fishtailed out of the parking lot, tires smoking. Vance was already moving, gun drawn, shouting into his radio. But Elias's attention was locked on something else. On the wall behind where they'd been sitting. A bullet hole. Right where Vance's head had been 30 seconds ago. Someone had just tried to kill them. And that someone knew exactly where they were and what they were discussing. The warehouse on 5th Street wasn't just a location. It was a trap, and Marina Cortez was already caught in it, bleeding out while the clock ticked down and the truth died with her. The warehouse smelled like rust and rain. Elias followed Vance through the broken side entrance, stepping over yellow police tape that had been cut and left hanging. Ranger stayed close, ears flat against his skull. The dog's breath came quick and shallow. She's here, Vance whispered. Blood trail leads inside. Dark drops marked the concrete. Fresh. Still wet. They followed them deeper into the building, past empty shipping containers and abandoned machinery. Moonlight filtered through holes in the roof, casting everything in silver and shadow. A sound stopped them. Weak. Human. Crying. They found her behind a stack of wooden pallets, curled on her side, one hand pressed against her stomach. Blood pooled underneath her. Too much blood. Her eyes found Elias's face, and something like recognition flickered there. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't mean to. Vance was already on his radio, calling for an ambulance. His voice was calm and professional, giving coordinates and medical details that meant nothing to Elias. All he could see was the woman who'd collapsed on his lawn, who'd tried to warn him, who'd been running for her life, while everyone called her crazy. Marina. He knelt beside her. Who did this? Hutchins was an accident. Neither was your wife. Her breathing was labored. Each word cost her. They target anyone who sees. Anyone who questions. The files. Where are the files? She tried to smile. It came out as a grimace. Bag. Your lawn. I threw them. Thought you'd understand. I didn't. I'm sorry. I should have looked. Should have listened to Ranger. Smart dog. Her hand moved weakly toward where Ranger stood. The dog stepped closer, letting her fingers brush his fur. He knew. Dogs always know. The ambulance sirens wailed in the distance. Too far. Too slow. Elias knew it. Vance knew it. Marina probably knew it too. My baby, she whispered. Is my baby. Don't talk. Save your strength. But she kept talking, words rushing out like she knew time was running out. Wick took the drive. Destroyed it. But I made other copies. Sent one to the FBI. Anonymous. 3 days ago. They should have it by now. Vance's head snapped up. You sent it to the FBI? Didn't trust anyone local. Didn't trust. Her eyes rolled back. Her breathing turned shallow and rattling. Elias grabbed her hand. Stay with me. Marina. Stay with me. Her fingers squeezed once. Then went limp. The paramedics arrived 6 minutes later. They worked fast and professional, loading her onto a stretcher, starting IVs, checking vitals. One of them looked at Vance and shook his head slightly. Not dead yet, but close. Too close. They took her away, sirens screaming into the night. Vance stood in the empty warehouse, staring at the blood on the concrete, phone pressed to his ear. Talking to someone. FBI probably. His voice was low and urgent. Elias walked outside. His hands were shaking. His clothes were stained with Marina's blood. Ranger pressed against his leg, warm and solid and alive. The blue duffel bag was still in evidence lockup. Marina had mailed copies to the FBI, but copies could be lost, intercepted, accidentally destroyed. The only proof that mattered was the original files, the ones Wick thought he'd neutralized by arresting the one person who might have looked inside. Elias's phone buzzed. Tara Fields. He answered. I just got a tip, she said without preamble. FBI raid happening tomorrow morning. 6 locations simultaneously. Wick's house, Sloan's apartment, the evidence facility, Sentinel Solutions headquarters. They're moving fast. Marina sent them files. I know. One of my contacts at the bureau confirmed it. But here's the thing, Elias. The files she sent were copies. Good copies, but defense attorneys will tear them apart in court. They need the originals to make charges stick. The originals are in evidence lockup, which Wick has access to. If he gets there first. Elias was already running to his truck. Ranger jumped into the passenger seat. Vance looked up from his phone call, started to say something, but Elias was gone before the words formed. The evidence facility sat on the south side of town, a nondescript concrete building with security cameras and a chain-link fence. Elias parked 3 blocks away, killed the engine. Watched. A car sat in the lot. Blue sedan. JKL 4378. Same one that had been following him. Same one that had shot out the diner window. The front entrance was locked, but the loading dock in back had a broken latch. Elias had done work on the facility's HVAC system 2 years ago. Knew the layout. Knew the cameras had blind spots if you stayed low and moved fast. He slipped inside with Ranger at his heels. The storage area stretched in neat rows, floor-to-ceiling shelves holding boxes labeled with case numbers and dates. Elias pulled out his phone, scrolling through photos he'd taken of his arrest paperwork. Found the case number. Started searching. Row 7. Shelf C. A blue canvas bag marked Cortez, M. Personal effects. He grabbed it. Unzipped it. Files inside. Documentation. Photos. Spreadsheets with highlighted transactions. Everything Marina had died protecting. Footsteps echoed from the front of the building. Elias froze. Ranger's ears perked up. The footsteps came closer. Heavy boots. Moving with purpose.